Welcome to Mondays with Maxwell. My name is Mark Cole. I'm the president and CEO of the John Maxwell Leadership Enterprise. I believe every one of you watching this right now is just like John. You welcome Mondays because you look forward to starting your week off looking for ways to value people. And since today is Monday, my friends, let's hear from the man of the hour. He is our leader, our friend, John C. Maxwell.
Hey, John Maxwell here. I'm glad you're back with me on Mondays with Maxwell. Okay, Andrew's advice to you, we're still in that best advice series, is if you're going to have a heart attack, don't have it in the middle of a game of charades. Andrew. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do with Andrew? That's the question. I've got my John Maxwell Team coaches in the room because at the end of my advice sharing, we'll have one of our John Maxwell Team coach talk to you for a couple of minutes. But I'm going to give you, I'll try to get at least two best advices into your life today from my perspective. And the first one I haven't really talked a lot about, but I'm very passionate about it. And, someday it may even be a book. And here it is. Here's the advice I give you, is that failure and success belong together. I've written 2 books about failure, Failing Forward, and then Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And I have come to the conclusion that we make a real error of separating success and failure and saying, okay, success is here and failure is here, and you never let them get together and always be successful and don't fail. When I have my learning lunches, these are the lunches I've had for 40 years. Every month I sit down with somebody bigger, better, faster, smarter than me, and I ask them 7 questions. And one of the most important questions I ask them is, during that time of having lunches, is what's the most important lesson you've ever learned? Almost always, like 95%, almost always when I ask what's the most important lesson you ever learned, they tell me a failure story. They tell me about a disappointment, a setback, a real miss in their life, and how they learned from it. And so what I'm about to say to you, I haven't really taught before. I'm going to read it to you so that I make sure I do it right, but just listen carefully. Every success story has failure in it, but not every failure story has success in it. And what's the difference? The difference is our perspective of failure. You see, how we view things determines how we do things. So if we view failure as a part of success, we'll learn from it and we'll embrace it, and it will be our best friend if we view failure as part of success. But if we view failure separated from success, going back to it's not part of success, it's part of the problem, then we don't learn from it because all we want to do is avoid it. So when I put success and failure together, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is part of success. This is failure 101, part of my success growth program that I have in my life. So when we keep failure and success together, it does a few things for us. It helps us value failure. Wow, this is so true. When I keep them together, every time I fail, I say, well, there was a lesson to be learned there. And when I have failure, it also, instead of discourages me to get out of the game because I put it with success, it encourages me to keep in the game. And it also, I think when we put success and failure together, there's a sense of that it gives us humility and maturity. It's almost like humility and maturity are a result of the fact that, yes, I do well sometimes, and sometimes I have some major misses in my life. I had a very interesting conversation a couple of years ago in the John Maxwell Company. For a period of time, we had what we call the executive circle. And it was a lot of fun. It was a terrific growth opportunity. In fact, I'm encouraging our John Maxwell Company to do it again because it was really huge. We would put a big-time executive on the phone with us, and for 20 minutes, that executive would talk about her leadership in the company, or his leadership in the company. And then I would ask them some questions, and then I would give leadership perspective, and then all the people on the executive circle call could jump in and ask questions. So we were having a very interesting call and the executive that was talking in this situation was talking about failures and mistakes, and the process of getting to the top isn't an easy process, that there are setbacks. So when it was all over, I asked him a question. I said, well, let's talk about these do-overs. A do-over is when you'd get a chance. This doesn't really happen, but would you like to have a chance to go back and change a decision? Do over an action and change that. So I asked him, I said, let's talk about your do-overs. What of all the mistakes and failures you've had in your life, which one of them was the one you'd say, boy, I'd like to go back and do that over? And his answer was incredible. It was shocking and it was refreshing. So when I asked him, I said, okay, what's the do-over you would like to have in your life? He said, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've had a lot of messes and failures. But he said, I don't think I want to go do any of them over. And it just got real quiet on the phone. And I said, what do you mean you don't want to do any of them over? He said, he said, humanly, there's a lot of things I'd like to maybe go back on the board and erase. But he said, you have to understand, when I messed up, the lessons I learned from that far exceeded the terribleness of the mess up. And he said, it really formed my character. It's who I am. He said, it's out of my misses and my failures and my errors and mistakes. He said, it's out of all this that I formed my character. It's out of this that I've formed my values of who I am. And he said, I'm afraid if I would go over and do any of my mistakes and failures over again, I'm afraid that would leave a missing piece in my character development. And my character development is more important than my past failures. When he finished talking about that, I just thought to myself, wow. Here's a man who has a great maturity and a great understanding about failure and success should never be separated. They belong together. One adds to the other. And both of them are really what makes us who we should be. So it's kind of like, in this part of advice, I guess the advice I'm giving you is when you lose, don't lose the lesson. And so many times when people lose, they lose the lesson. And the reason they lose the lesson is they separate success and failure. And because of that, they have to live in the failure line, and they say, "Well, I've got to get away from this as much as possible." If they kept them together, they would just say, "Well, some days I win and some days I learn." Tremendous advice. Let me give you another piece of advice that I think would be helpful to you, and that one is that decision making is overrated and decision managing is underrated. And the reason I say that is because, honestly, everybody I know has made bad decisions. I mean, let me just check with the coaches. How many of you made bad decisions?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Get both hands up there, and hey, and Andrew, he's got his feet up in the air. I mean, Andrew's just saying, I don't have enough limbs to count all my bad decisions. And the reason I'm saying that is when people say, well, make sure you make a good decision, I say, well, no, I know a lot of people who have been very successful, and they've made some real bad decisions. You see, okay, we want to make good decisions. I don't want to kind of just sweep that under the rug, but let me just say this. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is not that successful people make good decisions and unsuccessful people make bad decisions. The difference is that successful people, their response to their bad decisions are different than unsuccessful people. You see, successful people, when they make a bad decision, they don't deny responsibility for it. They don't run from the scene of the accident. They basically say, okay, I messed up here. Now what do I learn? Versus the person who hates failure, they basically, their whole thing is, I've got to leave as quickly as I can. I've got I got to leave the scene of the accident. It's been my conclusion in this area of decision that, again, decision making is overrated. But here's the big miss, I think, and that is decision managing is underrated. I mean, okay, if I make a decision to marry my spouse, that's a decision, but managing that decision is going to determine the success of that marriage. And that's true in every relationship. That's true in our decisions we make in the business world. You know, it's not that I haven't made some bad decisions, but I've been able to very quickly learn from those bad decisions, change those decisions. I think the funniest story that I could think of about decision making is a few years ago. I had a little bit of I don't know, like just a heart kind of a issue, and so I went to my cardiologist, and he said, well, you know, we just got to check you out. So he checked me in the hospital, and I knew that afternoon he was going to come and see me. And at that time, I was really major overweight, and I thought, I know what he's going to do. He's going to ask me about my weight. And so I thought, you know, being a leader, I'll beat him to the punch. So Dr. Crandall comes in that afternoon, so we're talking, and he's asking me how I feel. So I'm doing okay. And so I thought I'll jump ahead of him, and I said, you know, I know I have a weight problem, and I'm going to have to manage my weight better. And he looked at me and he said, no, John. He said, you don't have a weight problem. Now, just for like 5 seconds, I was stupid enough and delusional enough to think, oh, well, maybe I'm okay. And you know, whoo, this is good. You know, fat's good. And here comes roly-poly. And, you know, he said, no. He said, you don't have a weight problem. And then he looked at me. He got me out of disillusion real quick. He said, you're fat. You're fat, John. You're fat. You don't have a weight problem. He said, you don't need to worry about managing your weight. Because I said, well, I think I need to manage your weight. He said, no. You need to lose the fat. He said, you have to lose your weight before you can manage your weight. And I'll never forget, I thought, oh my gosh, here comes reality. You know what Dr. Crandall was saying to me that day? He was saying, John, you don't have a decision problem. You have a managing that decision problem. And when I wrote my book, Make Today Count, I basically, the thesis of that book is that good people, successful people, they make good decisions, but what makes the good decisions great decisions is that they manage those good decisions well. So a good decision becomes a great decision when you manage it, just like a good decision becomes a bad decision if you don't manage it. And so in the book on Make Today Count, I wrote Just for Today, and I began to talk about what I call the daily disciplines of decision-making and management. And just for today, I will choose and display the right attitudes. And just for today, I will determine and act upon important priorities. And just for today, I will know and follow healthy guidelines. And just for today, I will communicate with and care for my family. And just for today, I will practice and develop good thinking. And just for today, I will make and keep proper commitments. And just for today, I will earn and properly manage finances. And just for today, I will deepen and live out my faith. And just for today, I will initiate and invest in solid relationships. And just for today, I will plan for and model generosity. And just for today, I will seek and experience improvements in my life. And then I put at the end, I will act on these decisions and I'll practice these disciplines. And then one day, you see, if I manage those decisions well, here's the compounding that I want to talk to you about. One day, I will see the compounding results of each day lived well. And that's the key right there. You see, if I manage those decisions daily, one day, all of that management compounds and it begins to show up. So that's just good advice for you. It's just good advice for me that, you know, decision making is overrated. Decision managing. Let's focus on decision managing more than just the decision making aspect. And of course, the first advice on keep failure and success together. Let me squeeze in one more quickly, and that is the third thing I'd like to share with you in the area of advice is consistency compounds. It just does. And every one of us has seen the the doubling of a penny, that if you got a penny on the first day of a month, and there were 31 days in that month, and you just, the next day, you doubled it, and the next day, you doubled it again. After the first week, you'd only have 64 cents. Well, that's not too promising. And after the second week, you'd only have $81.92. Okay, that's not too promising either. After the third week, well, it's starting to show up a little bit. You'd have $10,485.76. But after the fourth week, wow, after 28 days, $1.3 million. You say, well, that's pretty amazing. Well, you want to go 3 more days to that 31st day. Now it's $10.8 million. Consistency compounds, but it doesn't show up until the end. And here's the challenge: because it doesn't show up in the front end, we stop being consistent. We just kind of don't sense the value of staying in the game like we need to. Let me give you what I call the persistent, consistent principle. You see, if you and I are persistent, if you're persistent, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get momentum, because momentum is the result of many pushes, not just one. So when you have momentum, it's not because you did one push and off you go. It's a lot of pushes. And excellence is the result of many practices, not just one. Okay? So persistence, if you're persistent, you will get it. And if you're consistent, you will grow it. If you're consistent, you're not only going to get it, but you're going to keep it. And you're not going to keep it, but you're going to grow it. Bruce Lee was right when he said long-term consistency betters short-term intensity. And so what does it do? Consistency establishes our reputation. Anybody can be good once in a while. To be good all the time, that establishes your reputation. Consistency is a prerequisite to excellence. We're never good the first time, and we're honestly not too hot the second time either. Okay, but if you put enough times in that process, all of a sudden it really begins to show up. I've been privileged to play in the Pro-Am AT&T Pro-Am out at Pebble Beach on several occasions. And one year I was there, and the pros were telling me that the reason they play 4 rounds is that if the pros only play 1 round, anybody that plays that day that's a pro can win. You can win. Anybody can be good one day. When you go to 2 rounds, you eliminate half the golfers. Just because they can't stay consistent for 2 days. He said when you go to 3 days, you're down to a quarter of all the golfers. So if you have 120 golfers by the last day, you got about 30 of them that have a real chance. What is it? Did they lack talent? No, they just lack consistency. And so consistency, it's a prerequisite for excellence. And it's the story that I love so much about the ice cube melting. At 28 degrees, nothing happens. 29 degrees, nothing happens. 30 degrees, nothing happens. 31, at 32 degrees, all of a sudden starts to melt. And you say, oh my gosh, it all of a sudden got good. What happened? Well, you see, at 28, 29 degrees, your work was as legitimate as it was at 32 degrees, but it wasn't wasted, it was stored. And what a lot of people don't understand is every day they're storing. They have a storage area, and they're storing either a lot of good stuff, or to be honest with you, they could be storing a lot of bad stuff. But what happens is what you store someday shows up. And when it shows up, all of a sudden people begin to think that you're pretty amazing. So that's the advice I have for you today on Mondays with Maxwell. And I'm so excited because just in a moment you're going to meet one of our John Maxwell Team coaches. And stay with me because I want you to hear what they have to say. They have something I think that you'll want to hear. Hey, John Maxwell here. I'm with my wonderful friend, Kelly Merbler, who is also a JMT. Well, she's a faculty member. And Kelly, congratulations. We have every year a John Maxwell Team DNA where we talk about what makes up a good John Maxwell Team member. And you just won the JMT Attitude Award. Isn't that right?
Yes, it was an honor.
Oh, so you got a good attitude, don't you, girl? Huh? Okay. Well, Kelly, I'm so glad and so proud of you to have you on the team. Tell us what it was like before you were a John Maxwell team member and after you became one.
I would describe it as wearing a pair of shoes that were too tight right before.
Okay. That's a nice metaphor.
I could walk and I could do what I needed to do, but I felt constricted. I felt as if I could do more, and I didn't know what more was. So it was just like feeling like you were in a box. That's how I would describe it.
Oh, my gosh. So then you joined the team. Mm-hmm. So what did we do? Give you a new pair of shoes? I mean,
I got a size that was too big.
Oh, so you went from too small to too big. Like,
Yeah.
how do I, fill these shoes? Huh?
Absolutely. Well, it gave me room to grow.
Yeah.
And
sure.
afterwards, it was feeling almost as if I was a plant that got water for the first time in a long time.
Oh,
like,
my.
it was just this thirst that I had to grow, and that's where I found it.
Oh, I love that. You know, I call Kelly as a nickname the salmon because she swims upstream, and you can't discourage this lady. And I know why you got the Attitude Award, because you have never known adversity that's going to put you down and keep you down. And you're kind of that person, Kelly, that you're either up or getting up. You know what I'm saying? And I love that about you. So talk to us now. Talk to our friends out there. You know, there are several that, you're thinking about maybe becoming a part of the John Maxwell team, and I don't know, maybe you're on the edge and say, should I not? Why should they, talk to them, why should they join the John Maxwell team, Kelly?
It is life-changing. And if I were to describe it, it is like the culture that every company should have in the world. It's what we all crave, what we want it to be like, where we feel valued, we feel appreciated, and we can live in our strengths. And I became my true, authentic self because I found the John Maxwell team. And life has never been better, and you are the best investment you will ever make. So you are worth it, and make the investment in yourself, because I promise you, you will feel so loved and so valued.
Oh, Kelly, I love that. And thank you. You know, when you said all those wonderful things, I just thought of all the people whose lives are better because you are investing in their lives. And that's what makes a great John Maxwell team. We live in the area of significance. We are always intentionally adding value to people. And if that's what you want to do, if you want to, make your life count in a way of adding value to people, just think of what Kelly just said, and we'd love to have you be part of our team.
So now we see there is good advice and Andrew advice. Let's call that unadvice. I hope you've enjoyed today's Monday with Maxwell lessons. What's some good advice or some unadvice you've received? Let us know in the comments. And what can we say about our John Maxwell team members? Every day, they look for ways to lead in and live out Maxwell leadership principles and philosophies. We're so grateful for the John Maxwell team. Each week, we'll feature a member or mentor from our team who will share their story and their journey with you. Why? Because we want you to see the real stories of difference makers, of value multipliers, and of possibilists. If you want to learn how you too can join John's team of difference makers, go to mondayswithmaxwell.com. Let me say that again. It's Mondays, plural, mondayswithmaxwell.com. Let us know how you saw Mondays with Maxwell and how you want to make a difference. Thank you again for watching today. We'll see you next week for another episode of Mondays with Maxwell.